Something appalling happened to you. To lose how you lost.
That was a long time ago.
Found a place for a child. This has been a really tough year.
You're at exactly the right place. And at exactly the right time.
I just need it to be special.
Then leave.
Most people are scared of pain. They don't know how warm it can be. Wonders, please.
Hi there, my name's Rowan Woods. I'm the series and episodic programmer for the BFI London Film Festival, and I'm delighted to be hosting this BFI at Home event for the Sky original drama, The Third Day, which is such an exciting and groundbreaking piece of television. It's an ambitious, high-end TV drama in and of itself, but the truly original bit is the 12-hour immersive theatre event, which took place over the weekend and which was streamed online and on Sky Arts live. Even in a moment where we're increasingly seeing the convergence of different art forms and the movement of creative talent between film and television, the combination of high-end TV and immersive theatre within a single show feels incredibly bold and boundary-pushing. It really expands the boundaries of what the medium can be and gives us perhaps the most original and exciting television event of the year. I'm joined by the series co-creators, screenwriter Dennis Kelly, and founder and artistic director of Punchdrunk Theatre Company, Felix Barrett. Welcome both. And congratulations.
Hi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So just a flag for the audience before we get stuck in, we'll talk quite freely about the first 3 episodes that have already shown and about the autumn live theatre segment that screened at the weekend. But I promise we will not reveal any spoilers for the 3 episodes to come. We are under very, very strict instructions. So just to start by saying it's the show is quite an unusual proposition. So it's split into 3 parts, each themed and named after a season. The first 3 episodes forming the summer segment have already aired. The 12-hour live theatre element, August, was broadcast on a Saturday, and we'll get stuck into exactly how that worked shortly. And the final 3 episodes that make up the winter segment start tonight, Tuesday, 6th of October. It's such an unusual idea and such a creatively bold and ambitious approach. Where did the idea come from?
So originally, I think we were approached about making a piece of television about how do you create theatre and TV, and they said, why don't we do a backstage tour of one of your shows? I thought, that's ridiculous. You know, the world is sort of cross-fertilization of art forms is where the sort of kinetic energy comes from. So say, well, why don't we just why don't we try and do something that tells a story across multiple platforms? Something that starts in TV, goes theatrical, and goes back and concludes mightily on television. And they said, this sounds fantastic, but you need have a great writer, someone that understands both mediums. And they said, well, you should look at this genius, Mr. Dennis Kelly. And that's where it all began, about 9 years ago.
And so before we go any further, perhaps one of you could just give us sort of locators in the story, a brief summary of what the show is about, its sort of key themes.
Yeah, well, it's set on an island, a real island called Osea Island, which is only available by a causeway. And the causeway, because it's tidal, the causeway opens twice a day. So when you go to the island, it's about 1.5 miles of causeway. You can drive over it, but once it closes, you're there for the next 12 hours. What happens is there's in summer there's a man called Sam. He finds a girl hanging in a woods. He's there to do something odd, and he finds this girl trying to kill herself. He's really shocked, and he takes her home, and her home is Osea. And he finds an island where people have really strange customs. They've been there for a community that's been there for, say, 100 years. It's kind of a Christian community, but with hints of sort of paganism, sort of set in the Victorian, started in the kind of Victorian kind of like enthusiasm for spiritualism, I guess. So those sort of things cross-fertilized. But as he gets more and more involved into it, he realizes he's actually part of that community from, his grandfather was part of the community, and he's dragged in, and then he gets more and more kind of pulled into it. And then the live event, which Felix and Marc did on Saturday, is really about him becoming the father of the island. It's really about his ascension into to take his rightful place. And we start the next part. Winter is a completely different story. It's Naomie is the star of is Winter, so it's a completely different story. But they cross fertilize, they cross sort of, and when you put them all together, you see the whole story.
And Felix, you mentioned just now the cross-fertilisation of art forms being one of the most exciting sort of places culturally and creatively at the moment. And, it's something actually we've seen during lockdown and the sort of use of virtual Zoom theatre, and really sort of expanding the sort of boundaries of what we think theatre can be and what we think television can be. And I'm sure we will only see that sort of increasing over the next couple of years. And of course, the programme is made by people, that come from television, people that come from theatre, and your exec producers, Plan B, are sort of very well established in the film space. How much of it was that sort of ability to sort of cross boundaries and sort of explore the sort of porousness between those different forms that really formed what was exciting to you about this project?
I think it's just that. I think it's when people are out of their comfort zone, no one knows where they are, so that everyone's actively creating in real time. And I think, when Dennis and I originally conceived this, it was going to be a proper live event with a live audience going in the middle to witness the festival, to tee us up for winter. But because of COVID, and we had to pivot to filming it. And we realised last week on the island that there was people from film, there was people from live broadcast, there were people from theatre, and there was a triangle in the middle. And there was this space when this hadn't been done before, and all of us were there. And it was that sort of fear and the terror of the unknown, and actually trying to sort of to craft something that, things work, things don't work, but it's just exhilarating in a time of sort of, particularly theatrical, the sector's really decimated. So to be making work and trying to fly the flag and prove that we can be malleable and there's a way through was what it was all about.
And you mentioned film there as well. I think it's that's really that's in there as well. And you're absolutely right about Plan B have a real kind of rooting in a real kind of solid foundation in film. And this project, because of the different stories, because what was really important to us was that we needed directors that could really kind of come on board and sort of tell their own story, and get their own stamp on it. And we really needed a sort of authorial directors, really, which you find in film. And so we were lucky with Marc and Philippa that we had directors that were used to sort of telling stories in film. So it sort of feels kind of cinematic. And I think the difficult thing was to find a story, because all of this isn't just, it didn't want to be just doing it because it was fun to jump between mediums. It sort of wanted to come from the story as well, so that it was about finding a story in a location where that felt like it worked well, And
at what point did the idea emerge to set it on the island of Osea, which is such an interesting location and really lends itself to drama, both in terms of its history, but also, the dramatic possibilities inherent in the idea that you can only get off and on it at a certain time each day?
Well, I'd been tipped off about it and went to see it for a different project. And at that time, Dennis and I had been sort of setting the loose idea of this show sort of up in Northumberland around Berwick-upon-Tweed, which actually isn't a very good place for a man to get stuck, because he could just jump on the train or go to the motorway. And got to the island and was suddenly struck by this haunted sort of, this air of absence and just its history, and the fact that, it was an island of temperance, and you can feel it. Like, you can feel the sort of the angst of the years of abstinence, and it's got a very peculiar atmosphere. So I immediately called Dennis and said, "You have to come and see this." And I think within days, Dennis said, "You then got the first draft because it was all there on the island."
Well, it was sort of. I came over to the island and just thought, this is perfect. Like this is the thing. As Felix says, the problem, we'd originally conceived it in a town, and then the problem was you can't really get lost in a town in England, and but once I was on the island, that felt like this is the perfect place. And I remember we were coming back on the boat. Like, there's a bloke that runs a sea taxi there. You call him and he'll meet you at a certain place, and he'll take you back on this It's really bumpy, you know. And it was then we were sort of Googling, I think, and we were Googling the history of the island. Someone had told us a bit about it, and it just suddenly seemed like all this stuff was perfect. You know, Charrington, which is in the script right now, you know, Charrington had set this community up, you know, and so that was it. We just it just felt like that's it. We've got to put all this stuff into the script, and it from then on. I mean, it was a difficult. It has been difficult to write it. The writing of it has been hard, but what hasn't been difficult is it's felt that there was a strong feeling in the scripts. There's a strong sort of tone. I think a lot of that owes itself to the island, doesn't it? It kind of like the island is such a weird place. No, it's a lovely place. You know, I don't want to. Honestly, it's not as scary. Please don't not go there, because it's not as scary as it is on the on the screen. But it's kind of an amazing place.
So I'd love to get in and start talking about the autumn segment, which, you know, is the bit that really feels sort of the most original and unusual. But before we do that, you know, for people who perhaps aren't familiar, you know, who are these people, with Punchdrunk's work and the way you guys work, and what does immersive theatre look like, and what are the kinds of shows that Punchdrunk usually look like, and I guess sort of how typical of Punchdrunk's usual work is what you've done with this live theatre element as part of this show.
Well, I think our work is just about placing the audience at the heart of it. And what we originally intended was that we wanted to sort of break the fourth wall of television. People would watch Summer, and then suddenly this festival that had been alluded to in the narrative was going to happen in real life. So normally it's about the audience being there and being able to sort of traverse a space in their own time and adventure through it. And then without an audience being able to be there, we just tried to shift it so that the action was the same, but we had Marc Munden's and Ola Birkeland's incredible eyes across it, and trying to put one camera to be that audience member and to navigate it. So it's actually something that's we've never done anything like it before. But I just hope that it had a sense of what it was like, you know, the durational quality and what all the performers were going through. Like they were really doing it in real time, and I think it was unbelievably exhausting, and the sort of pressure of that scrutiny. So yeah, who knows, it's experiential TV.
And let's talk about the logistics of mounting something like that. You know, 12 hours live TV, I imagine that had to be sort of rehearsed down to, you know, every single moment. And surely you must have had multiple camera people sort of swapping over behind the camera. How did that work?
It was very, very hairy. It turns out 2 weeks isn't a very long time to plan a 12-hour film. I think there were about 20 camera changes, 2 cranes, numerous things went wrong, a lot of blind panic behind the scenes, and I think we almost got pulled off the air once for compliance, and so it was a feat of technical mastery from Marc and his team, and hats off to the extreme hard work of everybody.
And of course, that's, you know, 2 weeks to prep, because originally you intended to do it in May in a very, very different form, and you would have had lots of time to sort of think about how that was going to look. And
a lot less rain. But actually, I think it's really turned out for the best, and to have that sort of autumnal feel and a really different flavour, and to be able to set the scene and you know, and be able to sort of tee it up and breathe a bridge, so we can literally hand over now to Philippa and Naomie and Nico for the next for Winter. It's just it was a brilliant privilege to that it all landed this way. Maybe the silver lining of COVID.
And so everyone we see in that autumn segment, you know, who isn't sort of the key cast members, Jude or Catherine Woodson, and they're sort of your usual Punchdrunk players.
Yeah, the majority of them are sort of a team. So it was what was brilliant is that they were also featurers more peripherally in Summer and in Winter too. So we really wanted to try and embed it so it felt like a homogenous whole.
And there were some characters that we'll meet in Winter that we sort of inserted there. So there are some actors there that you know, there are characters that we'll meet.
Yeah, we want this to be the perfect runway as we transition now towards tonight.
So before we move on and start sort of talking about the winter segment that comes up, of course, you know, that punch-drunk sensibility isn't just confined to the autumn segment. It sort of bleeds into the whole show. And you know, I think there's a moment in the first episode in the pub that we really see that sort of sense of what an immersive punch-drunk show might look like. So let's take a look at that clip.
This one's for you, Sam! Swim, Sam, swim. Show them you're some swimmer. Swim just like the swans.
So just, don't to say that, to reiterate what Dennis was saying, that although that's some of our performance, I think really the vision, the power of this piece is it's three separate stories within the same world of Osea. And I think it's a testament to the sort of different visions and mastery of both Marc and Summer and Philippa and Winter that give it completely different identities. So our performers were there, but that's Marc's brilliant work, and I can't wait for you all to experience Philippa's very, very shortly.
So the first 3 episodes and the full 12 hours are available online to catch up at the moment, and there will be an edited highlights package of that amazing sort of 12-hour autumn extravaganza that will screen on Sky Arts later this month. But for now, the third and final segment of the show, Winter, begins on Sky tonight. So let's bring in some of the key cast and creatives here to talk about it. So we're now joined by Philippa Lowthorpe, who directs these final 3 episodes. Welcome, Philippa. By Naomie Harris and Nico Parker, who join and lead the cast in these 3 episodes. By writers Kit Duvall and Dean O'Loughlin, who wrote these winter episodes with Dennis Kelly. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. So Naomie, let's start with you. Without giving anything away, and there's lots to give away, can you give us a sense of where this part of the story picks up and what your role in it is?
So I play Helen, who is coming to this very mysterious island on a mission, which we only discover what that mission is much later on. I would say not until really episode 3 do we really understand that. Sorry, episode 3 of the winter section. Do you understand why she's actually there? But it seems like a really spooky, uninviting island, and it really doesn't make much sense as to why she stays on the island, why she's brought her children with her. And I think the audience are going to be watching the episode thinking, get off the island, which actually is what most of my friends are thinking about Jude as well in the first section in the summer episode, because they're all like ringing me saying, we love it, but why doesn't he leave? He had an opportunity and he didn't get off, and I'm so frustrated. I actually had a call at 7 o'clock this morning because my friend was watching it in Canada, and she was like, I'm just so irritated. He had another opportunity to leave and he didn't take it. So I think she's going to be even more annoyed because I actually brought my kids with me. So yeah.
And what was it about the project that felt so intriguing to you, you know, from a creative perspective? And I guess that question is both for you, Naomie, but also for Nico.
I mean, I really loved it because I was excited about the opportunity of working with the incredible director that is Philippa, and also because I thought the writing is really exceptional, and the whole world is just so intriguing and unlike anything else that I've seen before, but also as well because it gave me an opportunity to basically play my mum, because I think this whole piece for me is about this fierce mother's love, and it's almost this tigress love where you will kill and move mountains and do anything for your children. I don't know, I don't have children, so I don't know what that's like, but I see it with my mother, and I wanted an opportunity to portray that on screen. So yeah.
How about you, Nico?
I mean, I think when I was auditioning for it, I actually had no idea what it was about. It was just kind of just going in for it anyway, so I didn't know what I was really doing. But then I think when we did what is it, like a table read, I think, where everyone sits down and reads it. That was kind of the first time I'd read all three in their entirety, and that was really, I mean, especially just seeing, because a lot of the cast members were there, so seeing everyone really committed to their role was it just made me really, really excited to start and be with everyone included in such an amazing project, because there's so many really incredible messages like inside through the story, and I just thought to be able to portray some of that was really, really exciting.
And so we won't delve too much into the plot, but without giving anything away, the bond of the family, you know, between you and Naomie's character Helen and Charlotte, who plays your sister, is really key. Is really right at the heart of these episodes. Can you talk a little bit, Nico, about how you worked with Charlotte and how you worked with Naomie to sort of create that sense of family, that bond?
I mean, I think when you're with people so often, it becomes quite easy, and it just becomes very simple for, I think, all of us, for it to be a really familial bond. And Charlotte I love Charlotte. She's crazy, and everyone just adored her the entire time. And I think it became, for Naomie, I think you guys had a really like mother-daughter bond, because Charlotte just worshipped anything Naomie did, which was great. So I think that became quite simple. And I think as well, me and Charlotte, because we would annoy each other all the time, and we'd both be quite open about, because we'd see each other so often, I don't think either of us were afraid to hurt each other's feelings, so we tell each other when we were annoying each other. So I think we also, the kind of sibling bond happened really quickly. Like, I think about the second time I met her, we were already fighting like siblings. So, and I think Naomie, obviously, she's just awesome. So she just became quite a fun mum to have.
And you filmed on the island of Osea. Did you stay there? I know a lot of the cast and crew stayed there and sort of built up a real sense of community.
Oh, we did stay there. It was horrible. I didn't like staying there at all, because I mean, it really is, once that causeway is closed, you're not escaping anywhere. So I think it was quite, I don't know. There were some times where I really liked it, but also upon arriving, I was told that that's where they filmed Woman in Black as well, which I had no time for. I hate, as soon as we got there, and we were driving across the causeway, I was just horrified. But I think, I mean, it became kind of homely because everyone's there and it's like the same atmosphere every day. But I really, you're locked in as soon as you get on there. You're not getting out. So that was quite daunting.
Before we go any further, let's just see a clip from the winter segment so we can sort of locate ourselves in the conversation.
This has been a really tough year. This holiday's like a new start.
Found a place for a child.
My girls have been through a lot. I want them to feel good.
Then leave.
And believe me, we are staying on this island.
Wonders, please.
So, Philippa, we can see from that clip that we've just shown that these 3 episodes have a very different look, a very, very different feel to them from the summer episodes. Can you talk a little bit about the creative approach from a directorial standpoint? You know, perhaps how closely you worked with Marc to sort of create that sense and that feel of the show, but also I think Felix mentioned earlier, and Dennis mentioned that they were really looking for a director that could have a very sort of authored take on this, which isn't always the case when you're doing sort of high-end TV. Often you're sort of coming in and directing a couple of episodes and sort of fitting into a sort of pre-existing format.
Yeah, I think that was the fantastic thing about this project, was that they were 3 different authored parts of it, for visually and for a director. And also it comes from the writing, the style that you sort of look for comes out of the story. So what Kit and Dennis and Dean had created in the scripts really informed the way that I approached it. And also, you know, it's a different time of year. It had a different lead character in Helen, played by Naomie, and the girls. So it demanded a very, very different feeling from Summer. And what's happening with Naomie's character, Helen, is a very different thing from what happens with Sam, whose purchase on reality is really fractured. And this is different. Helen is different. She's a woman on a mission, as Naomie described. And for me, what really struck me about Osea was that amazing landscape. So it lends itself to cinema. It lends itself to a cinematic approach with those massive big skies and very thin slices of ground underneath. And so putting this family, this vulnerable family, into that landscape was what made me adopt that style. And also I come from Lincolnshire, which is incredibly flat. I've grown up on a landscape like that. So I loved that. I loved filming those bleak places, that we did in that very sort of huge way. Yeah.
You've also said it's one of the hardest shoots you've ever done. Why was that?
Well, it was so hard. If they'd have told me how hard it was, would I have done it? I don't know. Just from what Naomie and Nico were saying about being on the island, you are literally stuck there, and it was very physically demanding. We had to film some sequences where Naomie had to actually get in the water and swim in that causeway. It was really, really tough, and also just the logistics for a big crew living on the island. It was really very physically demanding, and it was quite scary and atmospheric, the island. I found it so.
And Philippa and Naomie, perhaps you can talk a little bit about how you work together to sort of create that really quite intense emotional journey that your character Helen goes on. And there's a lot of sort of close-ups, and even aside from all that, you being in the water in the middle of the night, there's a real sort of vulnerability in your performance. Can you talk a little bit about how you and Philippa work together to create that and allow you to get to a place where you could access that?
Philippa, what would you say to that?
I would say that Naomie is one of the most amazing performers that I've ever had the privilege of working with. Aww. And so my job as the director really was to create a safe space for Naomie to get into that rawness that she has to get into as that character, and also know where to put the camera. Naomie did everything else because she's amazing, and so my job was to capture that in the best way I could, and getting into the subjective point of view of Helen, and played by Naomie, my camera had to be very, very close, so you feel like you're absolutely with her on that journey. So that was my job, but it was just extraordinary because there was this amazing person doing this stuff in front of us, and the DOP, David Chiselet, the French DOP, and I would just nudge each other sometimes. I go, oh my God, she's just done it again. That's what we felt like. It was just exciting to watch her.
Oh, thank you.
I mean it. And the girls as well, and working with the girls. And Nico has done something before, but Charlotte had done nothing, she'd just done a little drama club. So Naomie and Nico were absolutely brilliant with Charlotte, and making it feel like this incredibly comfortable everyday thing. That filming is just an ordinary thing. You just get together and you just do it. And it made I'm very, very proud of Nico and Charlotte's performances because they're so real. They're so real. Obviously Naomie's too, but the girls they just feel like a family. So that's fantastic.
Naomie, how did you help to create a space where Nico and Charlotte could sort of find those performances in themselves? Because that must have been you sort of modelling a lot of that for them, I guess.
I don't necessarily. I don't really know in terms of. I don't think it was really me. I think that that really is about Philippa and the environment that she created for them, and making them feel safe and making them feel. I think one of the greatest gifts that any director can give their performers is to make them feel as though it's a safe environment where you can make mistakes, and that there are no such things as mistakes, and you're not being judged. And I think that's what Philippa does brilliantly. She's so compassionate and sensitive and really in tune with whatever you're going through emotionally. So she is brilliant at knowing exactly what everybody needs and giving that to them. And so I think because of that, the girls felt super comfortable and they were able to give these incredibly natural performances. You know, she even worked out that Charlotte needed little dolls in between filming. So she brought along this box of toys, which was in between takes, Charlotte was allowed to play with, and then it was like, no, if you behave really well during this take, then you get to have the dolls again, and that really worked super well. But that only worked for about a week, and then she had to come up with something else. So she was really brilliant like that.
Dean, Kit and Dennis, I'd love to dig a little bit more into the texture of the show, which is so sort of rich and strange and eerie, and all this sort of religious and pagan symbolism and imagery. How closely did you work sort of together and with Felix on creating that? Because that must have been a really sort of a lot of kind of creative freedom to really sort of build this very rich world together.
Well, we had a lot of meetings together before we started writing anything. And Dean and I were both brought up in a very similar religious atmosphere to that on Osea. So it was great to have the conversations about what happens when religion becomes closed and out of control in lots of ways. And also have the conversations about parenthood. And broken parenthood and what that feels like, and that sense of danger and isolation. So we sort of got on board with the themes quite early. Dean and I were both really aware we were coming into an existing project with very distinct parameters, if you like. But it was incredible to meet and find out how much we had in common and how we were all thinking along the same lines.
Just got to point out there were, in the religion we were brought up in, there were no human sacrifices. Just get that straight.
Yet.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think as well, like Philippa was talking about I mean, it was really interesting to hear Philippa talking about capturing. Because I think that's what she does really well, and I think that's something that distinguishes this. Marc does capture stuff amazingly, but he also structures stuff in this, and he's kind of gone into Sam's mind a little. And what Philippa does, what's brilliant about what she does, is it does feel like you're watching real people do these things, And I think a lot of that as well came from, like, when we were looking for writers for this. I mean, we approached Kit and Dean, and I remember they said, "But we don't do this stuff. We do social realism. Why are you asking us?" And for me, that was why, because we read loads and loads of scripts, but what their script had was heart, And so I sort of cajoled them into it, saying, "Look, don't worry about the weird stuff. We'll sort that out. Just come and do what you do." And I think that sort of is it. Kind of like you can feel that in this segment. You can feel that. You can feel that. There's a real shift in tone. It's very subtle. It's kind of delicate, but there is a real shift, and it feels to me like it always feels to me like two different independent films, but both really good.
And of course, as you say, there's a shift in tone between summer and winter, but there's also quite big shifts in tone, like within each episode, from moment to moment. You go from sort of moments of real tenderness to sort of quite shocking moments of violence. And, for me, the way that you manage to sort of handle those shifts in tone sort of really, really works. But it's a tricky thing, both as a writer and a director. Philippa, how was that something you approached on set?
I think the watchword for it is it just has to be believable, and that if you're inhabiting the characters properly and your camera's where it should be, you can go anywhere. It just has to feel like it comes out of the characters and that it's real. It was really good fun for me as a director to do something that went from deep emotion and really heartfelt relationship stuff to something that was very scary. And I absolutely loved that as a director, being able to, create that atmosphere, creepy atmosphere, and put your characters who you love into those situations was really exciting. And that's down to the writing, I think, demanding that of us.
And ultimately, for all the for all the tonal shifts, or for all of the sort of strangeness and kind of eerie sensibility, it's it's as much a show about sort of grief and how we process trauma as it is about anything else.
Yeah,
perhaps
absolutely.
Kit and Dean, that's something you can speak to a little bit.
Yeah, I think it definitely is, and we wanted it to be an exploration of grief and how different people handle that, and handle it at different times, because what you handle in the aftermath of grief is very different to how you handle it afterwards, and not necessarily better. So it was great to explore those themes and have these characters all have a slightly nuanced, the children and the parents, to have a different response to that, and how it was played out in the interpersonal relationships, as well as to, front facing to other people that they met. So it was great. And the performances of the girls and of Naomie was absolutely fantastic. You write these words, you never really know how it's going to be when you hear people say them. And Dean and I were just nudging each other all the time on the read through, going, oh my god, it's great. It was so incredible to see these characters come alive. Just fantastic.
I think the highest sort of credit you can play actors, and obviously this is one of our first gigs, so we haven't seen this very often, but for example, when Naomie was saying our lines, I always thought the kick would be, oh, that actress or that actor is saying our lines, but they weren't our lines anymore, because when they nail it, when an actor nails it, they stop being your lines, they start being theirs, and you end up just watching the show like everybody else.
So we have to leave it there, but congratulations to all of you on what feels like a truly groundbreaking piece of work. And just to say, the summer and autumn segments are currently available to catch up on, and the final winter segments start this week. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.